You remember in the last two sessions we didn't do the roundtable discussion, so we wanted to open it to the public. Do you have questions for our speakers?
I just wanted to add a couple of comments. So the first is that maybe having a kind of land fire for Europe might help to set a kind of common basement information we need. And if somebody is doing this, I think the European Commission should be the organization doing this. So I understand we cannot take the American models and translate them to Europe. So maybe we could make some custom fuel models, but the idea of having a general database for all Europe, I think might help a lot. And second is that the fire database we have in Spain is very accurate, but when you need information from France, Italy, or Portugal, it's very complicated to get this information. And when you ask to the European Commission, they answer, this is private, we cannot facilitate this information. So, as well, setting a kind of common basic fire occurrence database for all Europe might help a lot, okay? I'm not saying that we need a very accurate fire database, but just ignition coordinates, burn area, data, and cost might be enough, okay? Yeah, that's it. You have any comment? What do you think about this?
Okay, for the first question, we need, we don't forget never people. As the song says, people have the power, okay? And if we don't take the complicity of the communities, we are working under fire. Oh, we are working under fire-wise communities and fire-adapted communities principles signed 10 years ago. We are using with David Caballero, we are working with NFPA in permanent contact with them, because we are trying to adapt, we are trying to change or use their experience working with communities. But we have many sociocultural differences, and it's complicated in many cases. We work with Eduard Plana and other people in this human factor. And in the second question, as David told this morning, we need a forensic approach, a systematic approach. In our case, I'm talking about wild and urban interface because it's the area that we focus our work. But we need a systematic approach to document this kind of fires, because for example, the last fire in Valencia burned 50 houses. We visit all of them, and we take pictures and videos of all of them. We have now the information about this fire, but we are a private company and we are doing that because we need to learn more. But maybe it's not the best way that a private company is taking this kind of information. Maybe if we have an automatic response when a wildfire starts, we need an automatic response when the fire finish, to take all this information and to capitalize it.
So yeah, I forgot to tell that we need a WUI map, accurate, but I think that canopy height is the same here in Poland, in Italy, in Portugal. So if we have spatially explicit information for file modeling, you know, the information we need for the LCP might help. But I agree with you that the accurate information for the WUI maps might help a lot too.
Okay. I think it's a good idea, but as a firefighter, I have to say that from at least our point of view, fuel models add very good information, but let's say it can explain maybe 50% of the real fire behavior, because it doesn't take into account, for example, the live fuels. Yeah, and another thing is that I think should be considered of your idea, that I think is personally a good idea, is integrate maybe in that database the vector of the atmosphere. I mean, it's not to understand the pyrocumulus phenomenon or pyrocumulonimbus. It's not enough with information on the surface state. It's a matter also of the synoptic characterization and all that. I think it could be very interesting have this big data all over Europe, for example. But I think we have to look also to the air, yeah, to understand the condition of the particular atmospheres, in order to understand the fire behavior of that new kind of extreme fire behavior that we have seen these last years. Yes.
Is this thing working? No. Well, I just wanted to say, sorry about that. I think that your point that having a set of common data that crosses boundaries is very, very useful. I was part of the beginnings of Landfire, and when we worked on it, the concept was that it didn't matter if the data was not very good, because it was wall to wall. So the idea is that by building the infrastructure of the data that crosses all these boundaries and ownerships and everything, it achieves a tremendous amount, even if like our initial maps with Landfire were not that great and still have many issues. But by building a common data platform that everybody could use, we've had all these other subsequent developments that have come from that. So what I would propose is that I think it would be very useful for Europe to have a common system of tracking fires and of modeling fuels, but why not envision the next generation that it would include a lot more information? That if you can make it possible to exchange information seamlessly across borders and without having to go through different databases and all these conversions and everything, but have a common platform, I think the advantages for all of the development that you might want would be tremendous and would be far more than just what you could initially envision. Because once you build a platform of data in which data sharing occurs, there's all this subsequent development that is then possible to do from that point.
We are trying to the people living in these kind of areas. If the public administration must to do all this work to take all this information about wild-urban interface, about injuries, injuries maybe is normal, but why not ask the people? Why not can we work with the people? Why don't send us the information? We are working with this principle, for example. We can help you to protect your home or your municipality or your region. When we are talking about private owners, they can send the information. We can put this information on a platform, and we can do David works in this line many years ago, and he's working still now. This people is part of the solution if they take conscience about the problem. But if public administration father is doing all for me, I don't need to do something. I have the right to the protection. It's not, it's in Spain, it's not a right. Self-protection, you must to protect yourself. And if we want to change something, we must to translate this idea to the people. And one way to do that is send me the information about your house, for example, or your urban area, and we will design, but with your participation, with your with compromise with this idea of self-protection. Because if we must to do the cartography of all the houses in all the areas in all the world, we are expending a lot of money, public money, to protect private interest.
Just a few words about the European Commission. In my experience working with the European Commission on fire safety issues, in particular for urban fires, which is my real experience on that with the European Commission, is a very complex issue. Very complex because the European Commission is extremely slow. To digest and understand that something is important takes years and years and years. Just for you, just one example, fire is not an issue considered for research in the last FP8 program till Horizon 20. This year, for the next Horizon till 2028 for budgeting and get money to research on fire, the fire sector group, European, is now working for that in the Commission, that fire should be a mission in the Commission, you know, to get money to research on fire, but till now was not there. Any of you that make any project on fire was because was an eco story or something which has to do with the environment, but not because of the fire itself. Therefore, there are no common statistics, same for urban fires, so fire brigades in Germany or in Spain handle different data which are very difficult to cross and find out, you know, the reasons for the deaths, etc., so it's complex. And it's what I'm saying is that what you have to do in the Commission, at least regarding fires in the urban atmosphere, in the urban scape, is be there through European associations. Or, in the case of Spain, if I'm not wrong, I think the Ministry of Agriculture is right now the voice of the Mediterranean fires in the Commission. I think I am not wrong. If anybody can confirm or say no, Vincent, you are wrong. But I think is today our country, the country responsible in the Commission for to provide data, etc., etc. So we have here in our country a channel to go to the Commission if we want it, if we were really working for it. So to work with the Commission, I fully agree with you that we should have a frame, a common frame in Europe, but we need to work it out, and it's only our responsibility, I think, and work for it, but keeping in mind that will take years and years and years, but if nobody starts with that, we'll never start.
Maybe the last question, because later we will do the roundtable with the 4 experts for the roundtable. Yes.
Yeah. Very quick question. It's Sean Walton from UK. I was quite interested in the presentation on smoke inhalation, the toxic and irritant qualities behind it, and I think we've got a problem that as a sector we need to look at, because the results are obviously going to say it isn't good for us, but I don't know what the alternatives are. It's probably the most prominent fire, certainly in the UK, where firefighters do breathe that amount of smoking for really long durations. Impractical to wear a breathing apparatus limited to P3 masks that won't stop the smoke. They'll just stop the particles. So I think that's one work stream as a sector and partnerships we need to look at to see how we address it. The second part of the question really is there any work ongoing to look at the effect of the smoke particles on skin absorption and on the personal protective equipment, the uniform that people wear? Because I know that's something where we get quite heavily contaminated and we've not got a great deal of information for that. Sorry.
Help with the translation. No sé. Well, first the second question. Sorry, we are only focused on inhalation, so exposure by inhalation. So we are not thinking in skin absorption. And regarding the data available of health effects of exposure, the data which is available is valid, I think, but the problem is not that is all data, but the methods, I think, because many of the studies are retrospective and most of them didn't take into account confounder variables. So I think the problem is in the methods, not in the age of studies, and because of it, most of the studies show different results. So we can see like increase of cancer risk, but there's a lot of variability. Some studies found like prostatic, others digestive. So it means that the methods are not right because they are going to very different conclusions. So we want to try to use better methods.
Thank you. I would like to put across subject to the panel to reflect upon, might be of your interest, which is, given that in the well and urban interface at the micro scale, we need very detailed data. My question is, to which extent we are properly and adequately treating the personal data and taking into consideration personal data protection, disclosure of personal information, and the right of privacy of homeowners. I mean, all the data that we gather to reflect the risk at the micro scale should be protected, isn't it? That's a general question.
Regarding our part with these health studies, the protocol will have the approval of ethics committees. So in this part of studies, this will be covered. I don't know about other kind of data.
David, I think that as in any activity of our life that you gather information from somebody else, you are submitted to the data protection law. When somebody feels that something or you get data, I think you were referring.
The question is really important because in one of our last works to protect the community, the administrator forbidden the publication of this data because it can change the value of the houses in this area. For example, Shiga, you can't do this data public because it will change the value of the property. It's really, really interesting this point, because it's on the other hand, we can find when you publish this information, the people who say that their house is in red, is in risk, they come to the training sessions. Oh, my house is in red color. Oh, that's not good. I will go to this session. It's really, really important, this point.
What Vicente says, it's true that we have a law that we have to subject to that, but I have never ever seen a protocol to protect this personal data in a risk map in which it shows very clearly that one particular house of a particular homeowner has this problem, which is why I'm setting out this question, which is, in my view, it is not easy. To which extent the right of privacy is overridden by the right of protection of your house and the community. It is, let's say, uncharted territory, in my view.
Okay, and with this reflection, we will close this panel and go to the next roundtable.